Today we're going to talk about a chapter of history that is absolutely devastating, but one you might not know all that much about. This is the 1971 Bangladesh Genocide, a story of cultural warfare, political backstabbing, and ultimately, the incredibly bloody birth of a brand new country. Just imagine that for a second. That's what a witness said about Dhaka on the night of March 25, 1971. It's the night the Pakistani army unleashed hell on its own people in what was then East Pakistan. You see, they were trying to stamp out an independence movement, but what they did instead, they started a genocide.
And this campaign? It had a code name. A military code name, Operation Searchlight. And wow, I mean, you can't get more chillingly accurate than that, can you? They were literally searching for and snuffing out the lights of Bengali identity, their nationalism, their culture, their very lives.
So, let's start with that first night, a night of pure terror. Because this wasn't a battle. Not by a long shot. It was a one-sided slaughter unleashed on people who had no idea what was coming.
So picture this. Tanks just rolling into the streets of Dhaka. They make a beeline for Dhaka University, which was, the real heart of intellectual and political resistance. They started hunting people down. Students, professors, activists, anyone they saw as a threat. And in the middle of all this chaos, you get this incredibly desperate police radio call. We are already under attack by Pak army. Try to save yourself. And just like that, the war was on.
And this terror, it was so personal. It's just devastating to think about. Soldiers were literally going door to door with kill lists. There's this one just harrowing story from a professor's daughter. She remembered soldiers showing up and asking her dad, "Are you the professor?" And when he said yes, they just dragged him out the back and killed him. This wasn't random violence. This was a calculated plan to decapitate a future nation by killing its smartest people.
Okay, so we really need to be crystal clear about what we're talking about here, the words we're using. This was not just a war. What happened was genocide, a systematic, deliberate campaign of mass murder, all designed to wipe out a specific group of people.
So the big question is, how does a country get to this point? How does it turn on itself so violently? Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind all the way back to 1947, when Pakistan was first created.
The whole problem really started with the country's bizarre geography. I mean, look at this. Pakistan was literally a country split in two, with over 1,600 kilometers of their rival, India, sitting right in the middle. You had West Pakistan, dry, arid, and holding all the cards, the political power, the military, the money, and then you had East Pakistan, a green, wet delta where the majority of the population lived. These were the Bengali-speaking people, and they were basically treated like second-class citizens. It's been said they were a country held together only by a shared religion and an airline. That's it.
And look, this wasn't just about money or politics. This was about who they were. It was about identity. In 1948, the founder of Pakistan himself, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, stood up and declared that Urdu, the language spoken by the minority in the West, was going to be the only official state language. For the Bengali majority in the East, this was a slap in the face. It was a direct attack on their culture, their poetry, their history, their entire soul. So you have all this resentment just simmering under the surface for years. And then in 1970, it finally boils over. Two massive events happened that pushed East Pakistan right to the breaking point. First up, a natural disaster of almost unimaginable scale. In November of 1970, the Bola cyclone hits East Pakistan. We're talking one of the deadliest storms in recorded history. The death toll? Absolutely astronomical. Up to 500,000 people gone. And the government's response? The central government in West Pakistan? Shockingly slow. Just completely indifferent. One journalist at the time basically said their attitude was like, yeah, this happens to these people all the time. Just pure callousness. And that criminal neglect, it was the final straw for so many Bengalis. It proved to them that the rulers in the West just did not care if they lived or died. Okay, so that was the first event. The second one was political. Just a few weeks after that devastating cyclone, Pakistan holds its first ever truly free general election. And guess what happens? The Awami League, the Bengali Nationalist Party, led by a guy named Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, wins. And I don't mean just wins, they win a massive landslide victory, an absolute majority in the entire country's National Assembly.
So, by all rights, Sheikh Mujib should have been the next prime minister of all of Pakistan. The people had spoken, right? Well, the political and military elite in West Pakistan were having none of it. There was no way they were going to let a Bengali take charge, so they just refused to hand over power. They delayed the assembly, basically telling the entire country that their votes didn't matter. And that, as you can imagine, set off a firestorm of protests all across East Pakistan.
So as all this horror is kicking off with Operation Searchlight, where was the rest of the world? For the most part, they were silent. This whole crisis immediately got tangled up in the messy, complicated politics of the Cold War.
It basically became a geopolitical chessboard, and the big powers picked their teams pretty fast. On one side, you had Pakistani, backed by the United States and China. Now, why the U.S.? Well, Pakistan was President Nixon's secret back channel to open up relations with China. It was a huge deal for him, and he wasn't about to let a little genocide get in the way. So the U.S. kept the military aid flowing, even while its own diplomats on the ground were sending frantic cables about a selective genocide. On the other side of the board, you had India, who was just being flooded with millions of Bengali refugees. They teamed up with the Soviet Union and started helping the Bengali freedom fighters, the Mukti Bahini.
But while the governments were playing these political games, it was actually the artists who stepped up. You've probably heard of the Concert for Bangladesh. It was organized by George Harrison of the Beatles and the legendary musician Ravi Shankar, and it was a total game changer. Sure, it raised millions of dollars for aid, which was crucial, but maybe even more importantly, it put the name Bangladesh on the map for millions of people around the world who had no idea what was happening. So, for 9 long months, this brutal guerrilla war rages on, with the Mukti Bahini fighting back, helped by India. But the end, when it came, was incredibly fast and decisive. This is the birth of a nation.
Okay, so check out this timeline. The final 13 days are just a whirlwind. On December 3rd, Pakistan makes a massive strategic blunder. They launch surprise airstrikes on India. This was the excuse India was waiting for. It gave them the green light to jump in with their full military force. The actual war between India and Pakistan, it only lasted 13 days. But in a final disgusting act of pure vengeance, right before they surrendered on December 16th, the Pakistani army and their collaborators rounded up and murdered hundreds more of Bangladesh's top intellectuals. With that surrender, the war was over, and the nation of Bangladesh was officially born.
But the human cost, it's just staggering. It's hard to even comprehend. Now, the exact numbers are still debated, but the official estimate from the government of Bangladesh is that up to 3 million people were killed. 3 million in just 9 months. And on top of that, hundreds of thousands of women were systematically raped. It was used as a deliberate weapon of war.
After the war, the nation's founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, was finally released from a prison in Pakistan. He returned to a massive hero's welcome in his new country, and he declared, "Bangladesh has come to stay, and there will be no going back." It was a powerful statement that this new nation, forged in so much blood and fire, was here to stay. Period.
So you look at this story, it's one of just unbelievable tragedy, but it's also a story of incredible resilience. And it leaves us with this really haunting question, doesn't it? After the Holocaust, the whole world stood up and promised never again. But it did happen again. In Cambodia, in Rwanda, in Bangladesh, it keeps happening. And so the real challenge for all of us is to ask why? Why do we keep failing to keep that promise? And what is it really going to take to finally make never again a reality?